All right, so what we're going to talk about today is how to convert from the general form of a conic section to the standard form of a conic section. Now, the only conic section we've studied so far has been a circle. So we're going to just be looking at that. Now, what you guys see here is you guys are familiar with the conic section's standard form. We know that HK is our center and that R is our radius. Now, over here, though, what you'll see is you'll see the general form of a conic section. Now, this general form will remain the same for the other three conic sections that we haven't used yet. And there's going to be certain characteristics about this general form that will tell us that we are dealing with a circle. Now, all the ones you will see today are circles. But as we move forward, we know that we're going to be dealing with a circle when in the general conic form, if the coefficient of x squared, or a, equals the coefficient of y squared, or c, then we know that we're looking at a circle. Now, again, all of them today are going to be that. Now, when we take a look at this first example, if we were looking to identify whether it is a circle, the coefficient of x squared is 1, the coefficient of y squared is 1, so it is a circle. Now, when we take this equation and we go to switch it to standard form, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to rearrange our terms and move the constant. So when we go to rearrange our terms, what we're going to do is we're going to have our terms with x's come first. So I'm going to have x squared minus 6x, and then I'm going to leave a little space here because we're going to have to put something there. And then I'm going to put my y's, plus y squared plus 20y. Again, I'm going to leave a little space, and then I'm going to do equals. Now, in order for me to move this constant of 28 to the other side, I would subtract it. So I'm left with equals negative 28. Well, now what we have to do is we have to do a process we call completing the square. That's our second step. Now, we're going to look at this as kind of two completing the square problems. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at just our x's. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a perfect square trinomial. And we're going to do that by adding some number here to make it a perfect square trinomial. But in algebra, whatever I add to the left side, I also have to add to the right side. So to figure out what I'm going to add there is I take half of the b term. If this was just ax squared plus bx plus c, like in a quadratic equation, I'm always going to take half of that b term, so negative 6 divided by 2, and that's a negative 6, not a b, and then I'm going to square it. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. A negative squared is going to be positive, so we know that's going to be a positive 9. But I need to maintain my balance, so if I add 9 to the left, I have to add 9 to the right. Now, the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with just my y's. So again, whatever I add to the left side, I have to add to the right side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have to do half of my b term squared. Well, half of my b term would be 10, and 10 squared is 100. So now that I have this, I have a situation in which I can simplify this a little further. So if I take all of my constants now that are on the right side, I believe those should add to 81. And so then what I'm looking at is I have x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus y squared plus 20y plus 100. Now, I don't typically write this step out completely. I would typically work with what we have here, but I just wanted you guys to see that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our x's and we're going to factor them. We created a perfect square trinomial. So we should know at this point that this is going to factor into a binomial squared. So I'm going to have x minus 3 squared. So this x squared minus 6x plus 9 is the same thing as x minus 3 squared. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor my y's. And so the y squared plus 20y plus 100 is going to factor to y plus 10 squared. And then we're still going to have equals 81. Now, this is the standard form of our equation. We know that the center is at 3, negative 10, and that our radius would have a length of 9. So this is the process we take when we're looking to change from general form to standard form of a circle. In our next example, I'll show you when A and C are the same, but they're not